Well, hello everyone. My name is Dar Rath and I'm the pastor at Faith Lutheran Church in Port Elgin, Ontario, Canada. Each week I bring you a story that takes about 5 minutes to watch, and today the story is from a book called One Story, One Song by Richard Wagamese, and Richard is an Ojibwe from First Nations in northwestern Ontario. And this story is called Birdman. The birds are on the move these days. They are first sound we hear upon wakening. By the lake they're flocked around the bushes and saplings. There are dozens of species, and if you cast an eye, you can see them from flit and dark. They're migrants called by an ancient urge to fly north again after the winter. Red-winged blackbirds, grosbeaks, flickers, and waterbirds. My people say the birds are child spirits. We recognize their innocence, exuberant joy, even though we sometimes forget how to sing ourselves. Birds reconnect us to the song within each of us. That's why we miss them so much when they leave us and celebrate their return. In the splash of the late winter sunshine, they're gleeful. Standing in the chill air to watch them takes me beyond time, its rush and its burdens. Even the dog is drawn to their energy as she sits at my knee. As a young man, I'd always taken birds for granted, never paused to observe them, to consider that they might have something to teach me. Then at a traditional winter gathering, I heard a story that changed my way of thinking. In the long ago time, before the time of the human beings, one winter grew especially harsh and deadly. The snow piled higher than they ever had, and Keewatin, the frigid north wind, blew long. The cold was so devastating that the sap in the trees froze, and their limbs swelled and exploded. Everywhere in the forest was the sound of popping trees. It was a haunting sound in the darkness. A small chickadee who was nearly frozen hopped along on top of the snow until she came to the base of a small tamarack tree. The wind was gusting mightily. As the little chickadee huddled close to the tree, he begged the tree to lower its branches to shelter him. At that time, all beings could speak to one another, and the world was filled with their lively chatter. But the tamarack was young and proud. It reveled in its fine shape and refused to lower its branches. So the little chickadee gathered his strength and hopped on through the snow, clutching his wings about him to stave off the cold. Eventually he came to an old pine tree and moved closer to the trunk. The chickadee asked the same favor of this tree. Seeing his plight, the pine tree dropped its lower branches to shelter the small bird. Creator watched the drama unfold. She asked the tamarack why it had refused to help the small bird. The tamarack replied that it did not see the need to surrender its beauty to shelter a bird who would likely die anyway. The Creator asked the pine tree why it had decided to help the freezing chickadee. The pine tree replied that it had felt the bite of many frigid winds and knew how lonely and terrifying that could be. As a sign of the pine tree's compassion, Creator allowed the pine tree to keep its droopy lower branches from then on. Creator allowed the tamarack to keep its magnificent shape, but because of its tree's vanity and selfishness, it would henceforth lose its needles every fall. The tamarack would always face the winter naked and cold as an indicator of its lack of mercy and compassion. I was as haughty as the tamarack when I first heard that story. I'd just reconnected to my native family and my culture, and there was a tough battle going on within me. I worried that all my years of displacement had disqualified me as an Indian, that I lacked the necessary soul to really belong. So I used vanity as a mask, dressing in a flasky native style, fringed moose-hide jackets with elaborate beadwork, turquoise rings, hide vests, and moccasins. I ordered shirts sewn with native designs, and I grew my hair so that I could braid it in a traditional fashion. I did everything I could to hide my terror and loneliness. The story about the trees and the chickadee got me interested in birds, though. When I started to watch and to listen to them, I discovered a calm that I never felt before. I read bird books and got binoculars, and I visited birds wherever they were, in the marshes and the forests, the meadows, the semi-arid deserts. I could sit for hours enthralled by their vitality and cheer. In their songs, I heard celebration. In their behavior, I saw harmony with their surroundings. Seed eaters, sapsuckers, bark borers, fishers, insect divers, birds of prey shared the same sky. Each bird had its own important place in the scheme of things. Most importantly, the birds taught me that it's not elaborate feathers that make you beautiful. It's what you do and how you treat your fellow beings. Oh my goodness, what a wonderful story. He is such an amazing writer. I highly recommend this book, One Story, One Song, by Richard Wagamese. So, thanks for taking 5, and blessings on your day.